Congratulations on this movie.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you.
It's wonderful and very dramatic.
Right. Yeah.
Because when I actually watched the movie, I had no clue what the movie was about. All I saw was a chess piece, and I was like, "Oh, it's another chess movie," but it was far from it. So, tell me where you got the original idea to make this project from.
So I saw a documentary that had been made about Genesis that was called Dark Horse, that my producer first saw and kind of put me onto. And when I watched it, the thing that immediately kind of blew me away was Genesis, the man himself. He was such an incredible character. There was sort of so many facets to him. He was inspiring and articulate and intelligent, but also riddled with contradictions and a very complex human being. So I immediately wanted to kind of know more about him. I was in LA at the time. I flew back to New Zealand and I went and I met with Genesis, with Tom, the producer, and we sat down and we kind of, initially when I first met him, you know, the character in the film, he's got these pink Crocs that he's wearing throughout the film. Well, those were what Genesis was wearing when I first met him.
Oh.
He was in these pink Crocs, and I immediately thought, I've got to have that in the movie. And he's sort of standing there, and there's this very imposing figure. But what kind of connected us was when we actually sat down and played chess. And I've played chess since I was a kid, and so I lost to him, but I managed to hang in there enough to sort of earn his respect. And from that point, he kind of started opening up to me, and we started talking, and we ended up playing hundreds and hundreds of games of chess. I lost all of them except for one. And we talked all about his life and his experiences, and I started writing the script.
How long did all this take? It seems like it was an enduring process.
I spent about 3.5 years writing the script. I knew Genesis for the last year of his life, and then very sadly he passed away, and I continued working on it for another sort of 2.5 years before we then started shooting.
So all the information of the story here, is this all from his perspective, or what he actually told you, or did you have to like go outside the box a little bit?
I had to go outside the box. I definitely, Jen was sort of exceptional at sort of reflecting his experiences to me, but there were a lot of other things I needed to know about him, particularly once I lost him. I really lent on people like the real Noble and the real Jedi, very, very close friends of his. Jen's widow, his wife who he left behind, Natalie, and I talked extensively with them about things that had happened to Jen and other experiences. And then I of course spent time in the community and with some sort of ex-gang members and really understanding, making sure that I understood a lot of the aspects of the story.
How much liberty did you have to take between the real story and trying to maybe bring in a little bit of fiction just to make a movie like this?
I was always trying to keep it as close to the truth as possible, and I think within the restraints of a film, of a 2-hour narrative where you have to try and essentially capture an entire man's sort of life in a way, and also a lot of these cultural aspects, there are things I had to kind of compress so they'd sort of happen outside of the timeline of the story being told, but they still were based in truth, so I sort of pulled them within it to kind of manage to capture all of that in there. But everything, I mean, pretty much everything that's in the film came from something I'd been sort of told or heard about, or it was really, really crucial to me that I didn't manipulate the world or the truth that much to try and just sort of satisfy a narrative.
Obviously, the friends of Genesis have already seen the movie over in New Zealand. What kind of reactions they actually had?
Yeah, I'd say, to be honest, that was the scariest screening I've ever had, was when we first played it to Jen's, family and close friends. And it was a very emotional period. We set them up at a screening room that we were working out of, and they watched it over a weekend. They watched it about 3 times, and there was a lot of emotion. But it was wonderful. They loved it. They absolutely loved it, and I had kind of made a pact with myself in a way, and with my sort of fellow filmmakers, that if there was something that they didn't like, if they felt like it was a misrepresentation of their life or Genesis, and it really mattered to them, then I would want to fix that, because the last thing I wanted to do was create something that would cause these wonderful people pain, when it's their story that it's about. So it was kind of a scary moment in that regard, because if they, as I say, if they had said we're not happy with a certain thing, then I would have really looked at that. But wonderfully, they felt that there wasn't anything like that.
Nothing like that, even in a portrayal of the gang.
Yeah, no, they thought it was all very truthful and honest and respectful, and they've been our biggest supporters ever since. And they actually, we had them on set while we were filming as well, to kind of, I had the real Noble and the real Jedi and that on set, making sure that things were how they really were. So we really made sure to involve them all the way through. So yeah.
Wow, for me watching the movie, just to have imagining them on set would be a little bit nerve-wracking.
Absolutely. I mean, there's been, there are many kind of nerve-wracking aspects of it, but yes, that was one. But in a way, as I say, I just wanted to set that bar for it. I didn't want to make it easy. I wanted it to be authentic and real and truthful. And so by having them on set, that was the way of doing it, and I would have, there were times where, we were doing a thing with the Eastern Knights in the club, and a game happened in a certain way, and then Noble, the real Noble, suddenly was like, no, wait, that's wrong, to run in, and so it was like, that's how we rolled, that to me was a beautiful thing.
Now, Cliff Curtis did an awesome portrayal. How did you recruit him and saying, this Cliff is perfect for this role?
It's funny, when I was first thinking about casting the role, Cliff was never on my radar, because the real Cliff Curtis is a slim, good-looking leading man, and the Genesis that I knew very well was a big, toothless, funny haircut sort of guy, that all these kind of huge aspects to his character that were really important to me, that I wanted to make sure were captured. Cliff actually got the scripts from an actor that we brought in to read for a different role, who put it in his hands and said to him, you should have a look at this. And he got in contact with us, and I started talking with Cliff, and we started talking through the character and through the possibilities. And I think, but I always had my reservations because of those things I mentioned, and I think Cliff had his reservations for very similar reasons. And finally it reached a point where I realised, and I sort of said to him, in order to play this role, there's two things that I would need you to do. One is to put all the weight on, and the other is to method act the role, to stay in character. And Cliff thought those were both ridiculous ideas, and there's no way in hell he's ever doing them. And then eventually he, I guess I managed to wear him down, and he saw the benefit in it, and he did. And once he committed, he went all the way, and he put on about 60 pounds in about 6 weeks, which was a pretty impressive effort. And he stayed in character for the entirety of the shoot.
That is, you just put him through the grinder. I mean, you're not just making him gain weight, you also, the look, the teeth, the clothing. And when I was watching the film, the sorriest thing I ever thought about was like, I don't know if you actually did it, put him on the pavement with rain coming down and all this kind of stuff.
Cliff was in some extremely challenging environments. With method acting, someone who's bipolar, who has bouts of homelessness throughout their life. I mean, once Cliff committed, he really committed, and he went all the way. And it meant, there were times where I would show up on set, at 5:30 in the morning, and my first AD would tell me that Cliff's already been here. He got here half an hour ago before everyone. He's been out roaming the streets all night, and then just shows up on set. So his commitment, once he brought in, his commitment was extraordinary, and everything that I could have hoped for. And he never complained. I mean, I do a lot of takes, and Cliff had to sit in some awful conditions in rain and cold, and with all his weight on for a long time. He never complained. He is a trooper. Once he's a believer, he's in 100%.
Now talk about the rest of the cast, because obviously the movie is just not about Genesis and Cliff. I mean, the rest of the cast, actually, the ensemble made the movie, especially with the kids. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the actor Wayne Happy, who plays Araki, Genesis's brother, had never acted before in his life. We found him in a WINS office, a work and income, like a benefit office. And he was just looking for a job. And we'd put a flyer in there saying we were looking for Māori men in their 40s, tattoos and criminal records welcomed. And so we had a long queue of aspiring actors, and Wayne was one of them. And he was exceptional. He put a short little thing down on tape that our casting director, Yvette Reed, got him to do, and there was something about him, so I decided to bring him in and kind of throw him in the deep end and make him read opposite Cliff. Cliff, who is a superstar in New Zealand, and so I thought this might throw Wayne off a bit. I found out later that he'd had to catch about 3 hours of bus rides, and to 2 or 3 hours of bus rides to get to this callback. But he walked in, and from the very first take, he was exceptional. It kind of gave me chills watching it. So Wayne, and from then on, he was incredible. Wayne's own story, his own background, he was actually a gang member himself for 15 years in Black Power, which is one of New Zealand's worst gangs. And so he had a lot of that I think he could bring to the role. All of the kids in the Eastern Knights, none of them had ever acted before. We just sort of found them in schools and marae throughout New Zealand. And they were exceptional as well. I mean, just a joy to work with. And all the gang members in the film, all of them pretty much are either current or ex-gang members. They're sort of the real deal. Again, as I say, that authenticity was the thing for me that was so important and that I was constantly striving for.
Now talk about filming in your own backyard of New Zealand. I mean, how great is that?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, look, just on a very simple level, it's nice to be home and to be working in my home. But New Zealand is a beautiful country. It kind of has so many aspects to it because it has the beauty of its nature and of its environment in that regard. But as the film shows, there's another side to it as well, another side to the culture. And I wanted to, obviously, in quite an unblinking fashion, look at that. But it was also important to make sure that we captured the urban beauty throughout that, so that even within some of these tough environments, there is a beauty that is inherent in them, if you can look in the right way.
Admittingly, never been to New Zealand myself. I always picture it like Lord of the Rings or something like that. And then when I watched your movie, it was like, oh, it has, ghetto neighborhoods or urban developments just like any other country. Mm-hmm. So you portrayed it well.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I have joked that I heard it, someone referring to it as the greatest anti-tourism New Zealand film ever made.
Oh, really?
Because it dispels a little bit of that myth of the Lord of the Rings landscapes. But New Zealand is a stunning country. There are sort of many sides to it.
Now, with all the things that are going on for this movie, what do you consider as the greatest challenge?
The greatest challenge for the film coming out, I think, is just people giving it, having giving the time to go and see it. To actually, I think sometimes with films that they might not have a major star in it, and I think that at times can put people off, or they can feel like that it's a gamble what they might see, and where it's from some small country in the corner of the world. And I think the important thing for the film is just for people to give it that shot, to go and see it, and actually make that effort to get out there and catch it. And I feel very hopeful that will be a worth it for them. But I think that's look, it's probably the challenge that many films face.
Yeah.
That don't have superheroes in them.
Now, for Dark Horse, after Dark Horse, do you have any more upcoming projects for yourself?
Yes, the next film that I'm working on is that I've just finished writing and that we're moving into scouting now. Is set in Russia during World War II, about a symphony that was composed during the siege of Leningrad, and a conductor who it falls upon to try and perform this symphony, to put on this piece and get together a group of 100 musicians to do it. Meanwhile, everyone is starving and being bombed by Nazi Germany, and there's sort of Stalinism at its height. So, but it's a stunning true story, again about sort of finding hope in what feels like a hopeless situation. So I'm extremely excited about it.
I will definitely have to check that out when it comes out. One last question. It sounds like Genesis trained you. You played 100 games. How is your chess play?
I would say it's pretty okay. I can if you get me on a good day, I can play a pretty good game. But unfortunately, sometimes I get so busy that my chess gets neglected, and my ranking would slip a little. But at the moment, I'd say it's sitting pretty well.
I always find it interesting when I ask that question to other people too about chess movies. They almost never get the same response. They could do better on a good day.
Right. I think it's that kind of game.
Yeah,
I think
right.
it's that kind of game. You know, you need all your faculties, you know, very, very honed to do your best on the board. So.
Well, I played a little chess, and I know you probably will beat me 100 times.
Who knows?
Well, anyways, hey, thank you very
Wonderful.
much.